Preventing a game from dying is a topic that I haven't seen any videos discussing. Today we will explore the strategies employed by the most popular games that are seemingly impossible to die, and we will uncover the truth behind this topic. Before we dive in, let me explain our approach. We will be examining 3 iconic games: League of Legends, Genshin Impact, and World of Warcraft, each representing different designs and genres. Now, how will we use these games? Every time I introduce a point that prevents a game from dying, we will delve into how each of these games applies it. It's important to note that this analysis will be from a player's perspective. I personally invested over 1,000 hours in each of these main games, and at least 200 hours into any other game that we will mention. This experience allows for a deep understanding. Now, we all know that any game should have a good gameplay, minimal bugs, and meet basic expectations. These are fundamental elements of a successful game. When we're discussing preventing a game from dying, we're focusing on established titles, so we won't be diving in those aspects in this video, but we might touch on them. Now, one crucial point is the launch of the game itself. I know this is also basic knowledge, but this is very important. It's a pivotal moment because if a game has a rocky start and fails to capture players' interests, it can be an uphill battle to regain trust and momentum. What the is this? Even if the game improves significantly over time, many players will stick to their initial negative impressions. It's human nature. Admitting that one's opinion was wrong and that a game has evolved can be challenging for some. Instead, they may prefer to stick to their initial judgments. This isn't universal, but there is a considerable amount of people that do that. Now, for our 3 games, all 3 had incredible launches. They did set a strong foundation, so while the launch is a critical factor, we won't delve too deeply into it for these titles. What we really need to discuss is the balance between casual and hardcore content. This is arguably the most critical aspect. While the game genre influences the amount of each type of content, what's crucial is their coexistence. A game lacking casual content will undoubtedly annihilate many players, which can create an unwelcoming environment for casual players. Conversely, a game with only casual content can draw criticism from those seeking more depth and challenge. Let's examine our selected games. League of Legends has always been and will likely remain a competitive game. However, frustration arose among players last year because they want more casual experiences, leading to concerns about the game's longevity, which made Riot Games respond by introducing more casual content and promising more casual content, such as the Arena mode, also known as 2v2v2v2. The amount of players I've seen coming back to the game because of this was insane, which increased the game's reputation, and because of that, Riot is now trying to make more fun modes for casuals, though of course the competitive aspect will remain dominant. There's a similar scenario with Valorant, another game from Riot Games. While it also emphasizes the competitiveness, some players have grown bored due to the lack of casual game modes. Nevertheless, it maintains a strong presence in esports, but I think that the game still needs more modes. We will probably talk about it in another point, but Genshin Impact, on the other hand, is predominantly a casual game. Although players noticed an increase in difficulty with the introduction of Inazuma, especially if you get there at AR 30, and the Spiral Abyss provided a satisfying grind for both hardcore and casual players initially. But the frustration started when the hardcore players reached the end game because it felt too easy. But despite this, the game's casual appeal remains unchanged, so casual players still enjoy the game. Now, World of Warcraft has undergone significant changes over the years, which we'll discuss in another point. However, it has historically struck a good balance between content for hardcore and casual players, whether it's farming, leveling characters, or maybe playing the hardest raids and focusing on PvP. There's something for everyone in WoW. However, still frustration arose when the game shifted towards more hardcore content in retail, which was one of the reasons that made people go back to Classic. But this balance balance between casual and hardcore content is pivotal for a game's long-term success and players' retention overall. But even with a game like WoW, we will still see frustration because of how hard it is to satisfy both sides. Now, another crucial point is maintaining the core direction of the game. Now, I'm not talking about adding new features and content, because this is essential, but these changes shouldn't deviate from what initially attracted players to the game. Take, for example, the risk of turning a game into pay-to-win, or transitioning a competitive title into a fully casual experience. While such changes can work for some games, they can annihilate existing player bases if not executed thoughtfully. Legends of Runeterra, another game from Riot Games, initially focused on ranked and PvP gameplay. However, recognizing that this approach wasn't resonating with players, they pivoted towards PvE. Although this change seems promising, it's essential to recognize that most games shouldn't undergo drastic system changes if the players already enjoy them. So if it's not broken, don't fix it. League of Legends serves as a prime example. The core gameplay is always the same, but character reworks occasionally frustrated players. For instance, the rework of champions like Fiora or Akali. This led to some players quitting the game because of this. However, these changes were necessary for the game's evolution. To be honest, they were hard to balance. So despite initial resistance, they gained more popularity. Many reworked champions such as Mordekaiser, he gained so much popularity post-update. Similarly, in Genshin Impact, the direction of the game never changed, but it still had the addition of Dendro element, for example, that aimed to diversify the meta. While so many players appreciated the addition, I did like so many things in Dendro, others found it made the game easier and less engaging. It kinda removed some of the strategies in the gameplay, but it didn't change the core of Genshin. World of Warcraft again changed a lot over the years, but in the same time so much things stayed the same or improved. So World of Warcraft, even by changing things, it still holds most of its systems, to be honest, that players loved. Another aspect that shouldn't be overlooked is the lore of the game. While it may seem secondary to some, it adds significant value and can be a driving force for players to return to the game. League of Legends lore, although it's still going slowly lately, it made the characters more alive, and because of it, they made Arcane, which made so many people try League of Legends because of it. World of Warcraft also built a great base of a story. While some questionable things happened in it, a lot of players are curious about what will happen in the future. The same thing goes for Warframe. The lore of this game is pretty good, and so many players, such as me, do want to know what's gonna happen. And although I haven't delved deeply into Final Fantasy XIV, I've heard that so many people like the lore of this game. However, Genshin Impact stands out as a prime example of how lore can drive players' engagements. Despite hardcore players occasionally taking breaks, almost everybody plays in the major 3 or 4 updates every year because of the story, which makes them also explore the new zones and potentially get new characters. And that's our next point, the characters. A character with good design and story can make it more alive and makes players more attached to the game. You probably heard of Jinx, Misfortune, Viego, or Ahri in League of Legends, and so many more. The Raiden Shogun, Hu Tao, and Lisa are very popular. And almost everybody knows the Lich King or Sylvanas, so the characters are also important in this matter, and because of them so many players will be attached to the game. The next point is making a loyal player base. And this will always be with communication from the devs. A very good example of this is Warframe. The Warframe community really loves the game, and one of the most important reasons is the devs are listening and taking players' perspective. The amount of love that the game gets in TennoCon, the people that are commenting and happy about the game is insane. League of Legends did get some love because of the latest dev updates that they are doing frequently. Genshin and World of Warcraft, in the other hand, did prove that not engaging with players can really make a lot of people frustrated with the game, but they do sometimes add things that gives players more hope, I guess. Now, the next point is pretty simple, but very effective, which is grindable free stuff. Now, let's take this three games again as an example. League of Legends can let you grind to give you free chests that can give you free skins. So instead of buying the skins, you might get so many skins for free. And you can get a really fair amount for free, to be honest. Genshin gives you the chance to get the character you like without spending money. And World of Warcraft, although it's not free, the amount of things that you can grind for in an MMO is uncountable, to be honest. But I want to touch on something, which is the WoW token. Although I definitely agree that it causes more harm than good, it makes some players that love farming gold in the game try to farm more to get a WoW token, since you actually can count the WoW token as a free subscription for the game, or you can also get other free stuff with it. I myself did grind for that because I like farming gold. And I remember that I bought Overwatch 1 because I got so much gold and tokens. Although again, the WoW token is bad, the grind for free stuff can make so many players play the game more and more, even if it's sometimes a waste of time, to be honest. Now, before we go to the last point that involves the three games, there is a very important point, which is Sandbox. I noticed that giving the players the ability to change the game or make games inside of another game, okay, that didn't sound good, but this can make it really live forever. Minecraft, Roblox, and recently Fortnite are doing a great job in doing that. This is a very good way to make players have so much fun in the game. It cannot be implemented in every game, but something like custom games and things like that can be good in almost every game. Now, the last point will be meta changes and surprises. Games like that should keep changing the meta and keep the players very curious every season. But the changes shouldn't be drastic, but enough to change the game and make it more fun. If the balancing is bad, it can also cause more harm than good. A game that failed in this before was Fortnite, adding so much OP weapons and then removing them, then replacing them with other weapons did change the game direction, as we said before, and was annoying to so many players. League of Legends does change the meta a lot. Genshin changed the meta with new characters, and sometimes WoW in every expansion. But also, it's always good to make the game not that predictable, so players can always anticipate more. As you can see, the three main games we've discussed don't necessarily check off every single point, but they do touch on all of them. You might wonder why every game doesn't simply follow these steps. Implementing them effectively is no easy feat, because again, we are talking about players' perspective more than the dev perspective. However, these patterns that we saw in those three games make so much sense, but you might also have more points. Maybe I missed some, so you can write them down in the comments and leave a comment if you agree. And thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace, boys.
If you don't subscribe to stioorg, you're gonna lose every single 50-50 in your life. Also check his latest video, you'll love it.